Brace yourself this winter because experts say homeowners can expect double-digit increases in their heating bills. This is why I use the new mini space heater in my home and absolutely love how quickly it makes my home toasty warm without raising my heating bills. It's compact but strong enough to warm up my bedroom, living room, office, or anywhere else I need nearly instant warmth. Plus, it includes built-in overheat protection and adjustable heat levels from gentle warmth to toasty comfort. Do yourself a favor and grab one up to 60% off this holiday season only at www.staywarmnow.com. Plus, order today and you'll receive free expedited shipping, a 60-day satisfaction guarantee, and several other free bonuses. Once again, that's www.staywarmnow.com. Give the gift of warmth this holiday season. Good afternoon. I'm still reporting on how to pay off the national debt. Nearly 8 years ago, President Trump was newly inaugurated and looking at his options. I was madly posting videos about my sovereign money solutions, and this is probably the best one. It is totally timeless and completely worthy of anyone in my audience, putting it in front of the president today for a simple A/B test. Pay off 10% of the incoming U.S. bonds, T-bills, and notes as they come due, but pay them off in old United States notes or their electronic equivalents, and then destroy an equivalent amount of Federal Reserve notes, removing them from the U.S. money supply so the money supply stays constant. Then measure the difference in the national debt. Does it go up or down? Obviously, it will go down, and yet the bonds were paid off with interest just as agreed to on the day they were purchased. 8 years later, and nothing has changed. Same solution, paid off in U.S. notes, which are debt-free monetary instruments instead of paying it off in Federal Reserve notes, which are debt-based money.
Good morning. I'm still reporting on the economy. So how could Donald Trump pay off the national debt in just 8 short years, as he promised to do during his interview with the Washington Post last Thursday? To understand how to make this dramatic change safely and effectively, first you have to understand what the national debt is. When Congress wants to spend more money than it has in income, that's called a budget deficit. So let's say that in 2015 the budget passed by Congress was $4 trillion. But the national income, the total revenue, was only $3.5 trillion. So that creates a $500 billion budget deficit. So where does the nation get the extra money? The Treasury has to borrow it. Who do they borrow it from? Mostly banks, but most of the debt is auctioned off so that the Treasury can get the best price. There are many different financial products the Treasury sells to raise this money. Treasury bonds, Treasury notes, Treasury bills, and other products, each with slightly different attributes and maturity dates. The long-term 10 to 30-year bonds bring the highest interest rates. The short-term Treasury bills bring the smallest rates of interest. For example, here is a results sheet for a March 28th sale of 91-day Treasury bills. They sold for interest rates between 0.25% and 0.3%. Their maturity date is June 30th, 2016. That's when you can cash them in and get back your principal and interest. Here is a results sheet for 4-week Treasury bills. They were sold between 0.1% and 0.2% interest rate. Now let's go all the way up the scale to the 30-year bonds. These were sold 3 weeks ago and were bought at an interest rate of between 2.6% and 2.7%. But they mature in 2046. The United States has never defaulted, that is, failed to pay, on its bond repayments. Therefore, U.S. Treasury securities are considered the world's safest investments. These various Treasury securities pile up the national debt. Here is our current national debt to the penny: $19,264,938,619,643.07 as of March 31st, last Tuesday. Hopefully your head is not spinning yet with all these numbers, but here is the last one. How much interest are we actually paying on all this borrowing? Well, it varies wildly from year to year, but here are the last 5 years. It has varied from about $360 billion to $454 billion. That's almost as much as we spend on the entire Department of Defense. It's as much as we currently spend on education, Medicare and health, veterans benefits, HUD, international affairs, energy and environment, science, Social Security, unemployment and labor, transportation, and food and agriculture. How about some projections into the future of what the national debt will look like? Pretty much worthless. In 2000, the Congressional Budget Office created this graph. It showed that the debt-to-GDP ratio of the United States wouldn't go over 100% until about 2035. Well, guess what? It hit 100% in 2015, 20 years ahead of schedule. In 2009, the CBO modified their projections. They predicted that the 100% debt-to-GDP ratio would occur about 2024. Again, we hit it in 2015, 9 years ahead of that schedule. All we can say is that since President Obama took office, the debt has more than doubled, from about $9 trillion to its current $19 trillion. Since interest rates can't go any lower, it's fair to say that interest rates have to move higher at some point. And that means that the best case scenario for the future is that the national debt will double every 5 to 7 years, unless something is done. Obviously, this is not sustainable. Eventually, just the interest payments on the debt alone would consume our entire federal budget. There's only one way to tackle this problem. Get out of this debt money system, where banks create all the money in the system by having the outrageous privilege of lending money they do not have. It's not a new concept. To economic historians, it's known as a bank money system. Bank money systems tend to breed an oligarchy, as most of the big money is naturally sucked up by the banking system. The opposite of a bank money system is a state money system. State money is money created by the Treasury for the benefit of all citizens equally, not favoring one class, the banking class. Therefore, a state money system tends to reduce the amount of money the banking class accumulates and creates a more wealthy middle class, because the politicians pay less attention to bankers and more attention to us, we the people. It's probably no surprise to you, but most people think that we already have a state money system, and they are horrified when they actually learn that banks create all of our money at interest. A state money system then sells the nation's money to the banking class to lend out to us. It doesn't kill the banks. It just creates real competition between them. President John Adams considered any private issue of money a monstrosity and a fraud on the public. He was right. In the mid-1930s, at the depths of the Great Depression, a group of American professors of economics tried to persuade President Franklin D. Roosevelt to adopt the state money system to get out of the Depression. Leading this group was Irving Fisher, Professor Emeritus of Economics at Yale University, one of the most respected economists in the world. As he put it in his classic little book, 100% Money and the Public Debt, published in 1936, nationalize money, but do not nationalize banking. In fact, the present demand to nationalize banking would fade away if only the control of money were recaptured by government. Almost all of our complicated banking laws could be repealed if we made this separation between money creation and money lending. The insurance of bank deposits would become unnecessary because there would be no reasons for runs on banks. So, how would we make the transition in today's world? It's really pretty simple. Remember how the debt is purchased by buying treasury notes and bonds and other securities? As these securities come due, instead of Treasury repaying them with these Federal Reserve notes, simply pay them off with this older form of state money, old U.S. notes. U.S. notes have the red seal. Federal Reserve notes have a green seal. U.S. notes were legal tender in the United States from 1862 to 1994. That's 132 years. It's the longest-serving form of American money. Federal Reserve notes are part of the bank money system. U.S. notes are issued free of debt from the Treasury of the United States. Other than the color of the seal, they look exactly the same, but one increases the national debt, the other does not. The good news for incoming President Trump is that about 48% of the national debt is sold as Treasury bills or Treasury notes with a maturity of 3 years or less. What does that mean? It means that once you start repaying the Treasury bills and notes with U.S. notes instead of Federal Reserve notes, it immediately starts to reduce the national debt. It's not inflationary because you aren't increasing the money supply, because you're just replacing bank money with state money on a one-for-one basis. The total money supply remains the same. It remains stable. Therefore, the state money switchover will not cause inflation. So within 3 years, President Trump will have paid off about 50% of the national debt held by the public. Mr. Trump said he could pay off all of the publicly held national debt within 8 years, but that doesn't take into account the 10-year Treasury notes and 30-year Treasury bonds still floating around out there. However, just starting to reduce the debt starts reducing the wildly growing interest payments. It's real money the U.S. can put to good use elsewhere in the economy. Now, if President Trump can boost the U.S. economy in other ways, through better trade deals, etc., that will all add up to a dramatic increase in our GDP, and the first significant decrease in our national debt since President Andrew Jackson last paid off the national debt in 1836. And with all that new prosperity, perhaps President Trump could offer the holders of these long bonds a special deal. Extra interest to retire them early so he could keep his promise to the American people.
I'm still reporting from just outside the citadel of world freedom. Good day.